I enjoyed Max's chocolate chicken so much, and then something happened right at the end, and I kind of lost faith in it. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I will explain what I mean with a spoiler warning. There will be spoilers for this, but the whole thing is about 5 minutes, so basically anything I say is going to spoil the majority of it. But the animation is so beautiful, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And this is actually the first Max and Ruby cartoon that I've seen. I didn't grow up watching Max and Ruby. I don't think I've ever read any Max and Ruby. If I have, certainly not enough to be familiar with the characters. So I was really looking forward to checking this out, and 99% of it is so lovely. This was released in 1991. It's directed by Michael Sporn and written by Rosemary Wells, who wrote the books. And we have narration by Clayelle Dalferes. I apologise if I've mispronounced that. And the narration is really lovely. It's really pleasant to listen to, and it's really pleasant to watch. Max and Ruby are collecting Easter eggs. They're hunting for Easter eggs, and we have these gorgeous, brightly coloured eggs. And whoever collects the most eggs gets to eat the chocolate chicken. And Ruby is doing very well at collecting eggs. Max hasn't found any, and he keeps finding strange objects and ants and basically anything other than eggs. And then he does something, and I didn't mind the thing he did. I didn't agree with it, but it worked well within the narrative. And again, with a spoiler, I'll discuss that in a moment. But ultimately, what happened at the very end left me a bit baffled with what the point of this was, and I think it actually gives a really, really bad message. So I will discuss now exactly what happens. To sum up very briefly first, it's mostly a very sweet story. The characters, at least what we meet in this 5 minute short, seem to be really interesting. Max is particularly adorable. I actually thought Ruby was the younger one, just based on the fact that it's Max and Ruby, and you usually name the older one first. So that was a bit of a surprise, but it worked very well. The animation is really lovely, and the narration is really pleasant to listen to. So, all things considered, apart from what happens at the end, I really enjoyed it. So spoilers from now as I discuss what Max did and why I don't agree with it, but it works well within the episode or the cartoon, and then ultimately what happened. And Max realising that he's not going to get the chocolate chicken because he hasn't found any eggs, he decides to steal it and hide and eat it all. And I thought, okay, that's very naughty, but it's very cute. But maybe he'll get his comeuppance. He'll learn that what he did is wrong. But no, instead, all we see is Ruby getting annoyed, and then the character who I believe is meant to be the Easter Bunny putting down a chocolate duck. I think it was a duck. And obviously, well, Max stole a bit of that as well, but that's a bad message, because that's basically saying, steal the chocolate chicken, don't worry, the Easter Bunny will magically come along and replace it for your sister. Don't worry. You don't need to be honest. You don't need to be fair. You can steal it and we'll just get her a new one. That's the message that this cartoon gives. And I'm kind of shocked. I know it was 1991, but we were still learning manners and respect in the 90s. This predates me by a year, but the message that I received from this, so presumably young children watching it could perceive the same message, is that if you aren't winning fairly, Max did have a chance as Ruby did to find the eggs, then just take what you want and don't worry about anybody else, because the Easter Bunny will come along and give them something anyway, so you don't need to worry. That's a terrible, terrible message. I was honestly expecting him, even if it just ended with Ruby getting annoyed at Max. End of story. I mean, it's maybe not the most moving ending, but it would show that Max's actions had consequences and that his sister was annoyed or upset, and that would make sense. But instead, all we see is Max getting away with eating the chocolate, the Easter Bunny delivering the chocolate, as I said, I think it's a duck, and then we see Max stealing a piece of it. When you tell stories to children, you have a responsibility to make sure that a good message is delivered. That's not to say it has to be the most moral heavy. As I said, even if they just ended it with Max stealing it, and his sister being upset, her being upset would have been the consequence of his actions. So there would have been the message there. But by showing that it's fine, don't worry, you can steal and we'll just replace it, that's a terrible message. And I'm really kind of flabbergasted that Max and Ruby would do this, as far as I know, they're very, very popular. I don't know why I never saw them as a child, or have no recollection of it at least. Maybe I tried to watch them and realised that they were not good messages. I doubt that was the case, but certainly for whatever reason, I didn't watch them as a child. And if they're anything like this, I think that was kind of a good thing. Stories for children, first and foremost, should be fun because they should be engaging children in the narrative, whether that's learning to read or focusing on their comprehension skills. But you should either give no message or give a good message. There are plenty of stories where there's no moral or message and they're brilliant, and that's absolutely fine. But giving a bad message is never acceptable. So I definitely loved most of this, but unfortunately, I really hated the last few seconds. And while I probably will watch more Max and Ruby at some point, mostly because I just love the animation style, I'm certainly not in a hurry to do so. And I certainly can't say that ultimately Max's Chocolate Chicken is a good short, because it could have been, but the way it ended meant that it actually could do more harm than good.